On today's episode of Let's Talk Dog Business, we have the one and only Rymel Dmot, which I absolutely cannot wait to start chatting to. And you are here live on our screens, and we've been doing a shoulder shimmy already, which is amazing. So, Rymel, for people that have no idea who you are, can you please tell everybody a little bit about you?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the warm intro. So my name is Rymel Dmot, which the DMOT stands for doing my own thing. I'm an entrepreneur, coach, investor. I run two companies. One's called the Elite Business Club, which is my coaching and mentoring company, where I help consultants, coaches, mentors, educators scale their business to 50K, 100K, and $250,000 plus. And I also run my second company called the Elite Millionaire Group, which is my investment group. So we help investors build wealth through investing. That's me.
It's pretty epic. How on earth did you end up doing both of those things?
Oh, great question. So, okay, the short answer is before this business investing stuff, I used to be a professional dancer. So my whole career from like 10 years old to about 17, 18, it was all about dance. So performing on stages, started my own dance group, shows, competitions, private events, you name it. So that was my passion, that was my thing. Then I lost the passion, lost the drive, lost the motivation, lost the focus, literally lost it all and quit dancing. And then went and got myself a proper job where I then was working in a primary school as a teaching assistant. Now, the reason why I share that is because that journey, that teaching assistant part is what kind of started the kind of coaching, mentoring part, because eventually I progressed from a teaching assistant to a learning coach at the school. And I did that for a number of years, possibly about 5 years. And it was great, don't get me wrong, I loved it. The consistency, the kids were great, it was rewarding, it was close to my house. There was a lot of positives about it. However, one day I had a bit of an epiphany, and it was actually brought on by my uncle, who was like my father figure at the time, because growing up, it was just my mum and I at home. Like my dad was never around and wanted nothing to do with me. So my uncle, my mum's brother, was effectively my father figure. And one Saturday afternoon at my grand's house, he asked me how the job was going, the teaching assistant job. And in excitement, I was telling him how amazing it was and all of these things. And I'll never forget the 4 words that he said to me after I told him how great it was. His words were, "You're better than that." And that crushed me, especially because he was the person who I looked up to. He was the idea of success that I had in my mind, and that's what I was striving towards. So when he said that, it completely crushed me. It took me out, and I rejected him for it, to be very honest. However, because I did value him and his words and his wisdom, every day I went back to work, the teaching assistant job, after that, his words were ringing in my mind every single day until one day I had an epiphany. And the epiphany was, what if what my uncle said was from a place of love? What if he was right? And I'll never forget, the building that I was working in was an old Victorian building, like 6 floors. And I was on the top floor at the time, just looking over London, which is where I'm from. And it was just one of those moments that hit me hard. And I was like, when did I feel most alive, most successful, most happy? And my answer was when I was doing my own thing. That's where DMLT comes from. And I made a decision there and then that I was going to get back into doing my own thing, but do it properly this time, learn everything I need to learn about business and success and growing a team and all the rest of it. And in 2017, I attended my first proper business event. It was like 400, 500 people in the room. It was amazing. And the purpose of that event was helping people like myself who wanted to effectively get out of a job and run their own business. It was teaching us all the do's and don'ts, essentially, of business. And that's what really kickstarted my entrepreneurial journey. And then a year later, I then launched my coaching and mentoring company, which is the Elite Business Club. So yeah, that's kind of the journey as to how I got there,
I love that. There was a few things in there that kept giving me like goose pimples when you were saying it. It's like that feedback from somebody we love is crushing at times, isn't it?
100%. And it's tough love.
Yeah, it's hard. And it got me thinking as well about how many times these other people in our lives always feel like they have to comment on what you are doing when you are a business owner working for yourself, because you haven't got that air quote proper job. And it's like, what are you doing? And I think a lot of our audience can really resonate with that, like going out and working with dogs
Mhm.
and going, well, I'm doing the thing that I love. And then for me, even tying it in with you saying you wanted to learn everything about business.
Yeah,
And that's exactly like why we're both sat here now.
sure.
We did that journey bit. We did we know we need to learn about the business bit. We're pretty good with the dog stuff. We know that. We
Yeah,
know
sure.
how to do that. We're constantly learning about dogs, but it's something that we feel really passionate about, that this industry isn't investing enough into
Sure,
learning about how to run the business
sure,
side of
sure.
it.
Absolutely.
And I'm certain even in your coaching cohorts, you've probably got some similarities with different industries that you've worked with as well.
Yeah, 100%. And, I share this for the sake of the podcast and also your audience. I'm a big fan of analogies. And the reason being is sometimes, like, you've got to understand business, or this business thing is like its own world, its own entity. And many of us, respectfully and humbly, didn't necessarily grow up with the mindset of business, invest in yourself, personal development, learning. That's not natural for most of us, right? So the reason why often when I'm sharing lessons and tips and doing sessions with my clients, I give analogies is because it's easy to understand a real life example and then apply it to business. So one of the ones I often will say is when you want to learn how to drive, you don't think twice to invest in a driving instructor, because you know that driving instructor has already passed, is already qualified, can get you to where you want to be. So the natural thing to do would be to invest in a driving instructor, do your lessons, learn everything you need to learn, take your practical, take your theory, pass your test, and now you can drive legally. It's the same concept. So when I share that with people, they're like, oh yeah, that obviously makes sense. Of course, I would invest in a driving instructor to learn how to drive. I'm like, yeah. So invest in a business coach slash mentor to learn how to run a business. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Why do you think people struggle with it from a investing in a business side of it?
Oh, great question. For loads of reasons. For starters, running or starting, creating, running, managing a business is already going against the grain. It's already not the norm. So there's massive fear around it. It's who can I trust? But what if I do it all myself? What if I just read books? What if I go on YouTube? All these things are fine. But at the end of the day, like I said with the analogy, you could spend years, if you like, learning it yourself, making mistakes, being on quite a lonely journey, or you can invest in a coach and a mentor, plus get the knowledge, the skill set, their mistakes, be a part of the community and massively accelerate your journey. Because don't get me wrong, and I think it's important that we be honest, this entrepreneurial business owner journey can be lonely, difficult, tough, stressful, moments where you feel like giving up, moments where you feel like, actually, should I just go and get a proper job? And all these things are very valid and normal feelings. But the question you've got to always come back to is, what's your strongest reason why you want to go against the grain, be your own boss, do your own thing, run your own business? And as long as that belief is strong enough, then the notion is do whatever possible to get there, which would mean investing, learning, growing, making mistakes along the way, learning, improving, tweaking, so on and so forth.
Actually, I want to find out from you, because this is something that I've recently been experiencing as a bit of a challenge in my own personal life. But that very first step that you took towards that business world, and
Sure.
we talk about this quite a lot between us, that it sometimes from the outside looks like it's a bit cultish when
Sure.
you're like fully immersed in all of the business stuff, and you discover all these new things about yourself. Like, I've just been on such a journey myself with this, and
Sure.
they're like, how did you get kickback when you started, like, discovering all these things about yourself and
Yeah.
family, friends? Like, how did you deal
Your
with?
face says it all. So if you're not
Oh,
watching,
100%.
you
That's
need to
why I'm
go and
already
look at
smiling.
his face.
Yeah. No, you know, it's a wonderful question, and I'm grateful that you've asked me, because I know myself, yourself, others have experienced it or are experiencing it right now. So let me share a bit about what happened with me. So for context, I come from a family who are very big on going down the traditional route, which means go to school, go to college, go to uni, get your degree, get a job, climb the ladder, so on and so forth, right? Specifically at my grand's house, she has what I call like the wall of fame, right? And every grandchild and child on that wall has the, the graduation picture with the, the funky hat and the scroll, all that stuff. Everyone is on that wall barring me. So, oh my goodness, I got it from family members, aunties, uncles, my mum, close friends. Why are you doing this business stuff? Why don't you get a proper job? Constantly. And the interesting thing is, and look, I want to be real with everyone. It's not necessarily that you have to seek external validation. That's not what I'm getting at. But what is interesting is the question you will often get is, why are you doing this? Right? However, when you stick at this thing called business and you keep going and, you're building a name, you're getting out there, you're doing podcasts, you're creating events, getting clients, so on and so forth, growing the revenue, the question switches from why are you doing this to how did you do this? And when that question happened in my life, I was like, this is interesting, because the answer of how is all the things that I was doing that you told me not to do when I was doing them. So I've 100% experienced it. And all I would say to, this is a bit of tough love, all I'd say to those who are on the journey is, don't force others to understand the journey that you're on, because it's your journey. Some will be along the road with you and will support you, share your posts, come to your events, sing your praises, all the rest of it. Others won't, and that's fine. But the best thing to do is not to judge anyone for any particular reason, because at the end of the day, they're on their journey, which means they're doing what's right for them. And I'm on my journey, or we're on our journey, and we're doing what's right for us. When I mentioned my uncle earlier, the bit that I didn't mention is he's an academic, so he went down that traditional route. And even when I was doing this business stuff, is what he used to call it, he often was like, don't you want to become a scientist? Don't you want to become a doctor? Because he's a scientist, by the way. So I got it all the time. And what was interesting was, this is where the self-development, personal development bit comes in, because what I didn't realize is every time he was telling me, why don't I do this? It's not because he didn't want me to do my own business. It's because he was trying to guide me towards the path of success that he took. But it was actually coming from a place of love, because he was like, look, I know you are inspired by me and you aspire to be like me to a degree. This is the road I took. Therefore, this is why I'm trying to encourage you to go down the same road. So that's all it was. It was coming from either a place of fear, for some people be fearful of the unknown, because business is very unknown at times and uncertain. And others are saying it from a place of love based on their own journey. And they are kind of guiding you towards what they did because they believe that's the right path. So the best thing we can do as business owners is say, hey, look, I get that's your journey. And I totally understand why you're saying this, what you did and what you've achieved. That's amazing. This is the journey that I'm on, and I'm going to keep on keeping on, basically. So that's it. It's being okay with the fact that we're going on our own journey. Everyone's entitled to their own thoughts, opinions, ways of doing things. As long as you are confident within yourself, with the journey you're on, and you're striving towards your own goals, that's all that matters.
And that's exactly the conclusion I've come to. But it's been a bit of a tough one to accept it, because you do feel like people are against you sometimes, and they're trying to, and I understand, like my husband particularly has tried to protect me from this world and been like, how can you trust people? How do you know that they're not just saying it, that they've actually done what they're saying they've done? And I'm like, because we just have to trust that they're genuine people and they're really trying to help other people. And I suppose we're the same. Like we're guiding our clients and hoping that they put that same trust in us. And it's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And look, and for context, I'm a big believer in there's always a learning. So even if someone invested in a company, mentor, coach who didn't quite deliver, there's also a learning of, okay, well, what was it that didn't quite meet my expectations? Because now, as your own business owner, you can make those changes, not to go down that road because it didn't feel good when you were the client. Therefore, you can do it a different way. You can show more love and care. You can follow up more. You can check in with clients. You can do all the things that company didn't, to ensure that the trust that your initial client had with you in the beginning remains the same when they're in your program, your course, your mentorship, etc. So
yeah, that's a really good learning, because we definitely do that. So we recently did an episode on personality profiles using DISC.
Cool. DISC, yeah.
I've realized that I'm a bit of D and I, but predominantly D, I think.
Right, okay.
Vicky's smiling because she's like, no, you fucking are, D.
Deal through and through.
But we've done it where, well, okay, I've done it where I've been at events and I'm like, oh my God, I want the thing. And I'll go and I'll buy the thing.
Sure.
And then we've gone, oh, that was a little bit shit. But actually, off the back of it, I've gone, what was it that made me buy it? And actually, it was the speaker's enthusiasm and how they delivered the pitch, so to speak. But then the delivery of the course was incredibly underwhelming.
Right.
So we've then taken that and implemented it in our way to go, oh, okay, so that bit worked and that bit didn't. So yes, okay, I didn't get what I was expecting out of that course. However, massive learnings in it, and even massive learnings about myself. And then even comparing it back to dog training specifically, like we're all very guilty. And again, I'm certain this happens across industry, but we're all very guilty of when you're super passionate about something, you immerse yourself in it wholeheartedly, don't you? Like,
yeah, for sure.
So dog professionals out there are consuming course after course after course on dog knowledge to combat imposter syndrome, which I'm sure we'll get onto a little bit later. But that consumption of everything, so we're really big on trying to get people to understand how is that knowledge consumption actually going to help the client? Because ultimately that's what you're in business for,
of course,
to sell your service, make money, which people feel really icky about sometimes as well, especially when we're dealing with dogs and that emotional pull is there. But you are ultimately there to help somebody so that they can help you with the finances. You're helping them with the problem. And it all just works in this nice circle. But there seems to be sticky points across loads of everything. I've just said that.
Sure, I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's particularly with the money thing. If anyone who's heard me speak before, my philosophy around generating revenue is very simple. My philosophy or my quote is this: generating revenue is simply offering a real exchange in value. I'll say it again. Generating revenue is simply offering a real exchange in value. So all that simply means is to take the ick out of money, sales, and all of this kind of stuff, is think about it in terms of a fair exchange. Back in the day, I'm getting like really weird now, but stay with me. Back in the day, the exchange would have been, right, I've got 2 chickens, you've got 1 cow, let's trade. And as long as both parties felt that was fair, everyone's happy. I really needed 2 chickens, you really needed the cow, wonderful. It's the same concept now. However, we have this thing called currency, money, which we're now exchanging, like you said, in exchange for the service or the product. So here's the key. As long as the service you are offering to the client is, like you said, it delivers expectations, it meets what they've paid for, all of these things, and they pay you in the form of money, which is their value back to you, as long as that exchange is complete, everyone's happy. The only time it's not complete is when there's 2 scenarios: when you as the business owner don't deliver however the client's paid, and that it creates that underwhelming effect, or it creates that almost I've been scammed effect because the exchange wasn't properly met. I paid you, but you didn't deliver in exchange what I thought I was going to get, which means the exchange has been broken, right? On the flip side, if you're the business owner that just constantly gives, you give with all the love, blah, 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 and then clients don't pay, it still leaves you feeling funny. Why? Because the exchange has not been complete. So now if we take away the energy of money and sales being icky and think about it from more of an exchange point of view, as long as we are delivering the value, people will be happy to pay, because it's just simply exchanging value. One value is in the form of service/product, the other value is in the form of money. That's all it is. It's value exchange ultimately. And that's it.
I love it. I think people really struggle with almost making value something tangible. And I know I've been there as a dog trainer in the early days. My value perception was my hourly rate. It was like, I'll give you a session, and my head was so consumed. And in fact, like coaches do this a lot as well, don't they? Like everything is session based. Like you can buy a session of time. And we're like big believers of programs, as you know, and it's all this long-term stuff, and we're really putting the client at the heart of everything.
Of course.
And it's not even like trying to get people to not trying to convince people to change, but it's trying to explain how that value bit is perceived, because it's not a tangible thing, is it? Like, you can't say like a session is worth X amount, because ultimately we're all just putting our finger in the air and picking a price and just
100%.
making it up. So
Sure.
I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on how you could explain almost how that value bit could be propositioned a little bit better, I suppose?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love this. I get this question all the time. So there's a few different ways I explain it. The first one, again, analogy, is just giving a real life example. So let's say, for argument's sake, someone went to a supermarket, call it Tesco, right? And you saw a sandwich for £2.50. You'd be like, okay, cool. But again, like you rightly said, where did that figure come from? Yes, you've got to factor in all the cost and production, etc. But ultimately, someone decided this sandwich should be £2.50. Great. Now, here's the interesting part. Next to it, you'll see a sign that says meal deal only £3.99. So first and foremost, what happened? It's gone from £2.50 to £3.99. Great, we know this is more. However, the difference is we're getting more value for the £3.99. Why? Because you're now getting a drink and a snack with it. So now in our minds, we're like, yes, I'm paying more, but I'm getting more for it. And we have no problem, because now you're in choice. You can either just get the sandwich, or you can get the meal deal, which is more cost effective, and you get more for it. Happy days. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, and this is an interesting concept, is if we give another example, let's take Primark versus Prada, okay? You could go to Primark and maybe buy a handbag for about £20. Now, the interesting part is the utility of the bag at Primark versus Prada is the same. It still carries your personal items and belongings. That's it. But Primark's bag might be £20 there or thereabouts. Prada's bag might be £1,000 there or thereabouts. The utility is the same. So the question you've got to ask yourself is, well, what's going on here? What's going on is the way Prada have added value, whether they're talking about the exclusivity, how many pieces are made, the leather that's been, all of these things that they're sharing about this particular bag is adding to the perceived value, which makes someone say, do you know what? I'm going to part with £1,000 for this bag because I believe it's worth it. That's it. It might not make logical sense because the utility is the same, but like you rightly said, if I perceive the bag to be of higher value, higher status, higher quality, etc., I'd be willing to part with £1,000 rather than £20, even though the utility is the same. So there we go.
Yeah. And our default brain, when we are trying to create more value, I suppose, for the customer, is often to discount, isn't it? So,
correct, yeah.
And especially in our industry, it's what most people would do to try to get someone, like convince a client, for example, come and buy this thing. And if like a lot of people do actually, if say for puppy classes, for example.
You did it, didn't you?
I did it. And then I did like actually think about it and was like, actually, I'm doing myself out of money here. But a common thing in, like, say, puppy classes is people will often discount for a second puppy. So if somebody's got two, they'll say, yeah, bring the two along and you get X amount off, or like it's half price for the second one. And then the way I look at that, it's like, you're doing, anyone who's got two puppies, it's double the work. They've got like a massive job on their hands anyway. So have you as the trainer. So you're like giving more of yourself to that person for less money. And, you know, like really that person might look at that and devalue your service a little bit because of it as well. So like, how do you deal with that mindset of going, if I want to add value to something, I can give extra rather than take some money off away. It. So exactly. How do you get around that?
Well, you said it perfectly. That's literally it. It's my philosophy is let's always make it a win-win. In that first example, it's a win-lose because it's a win for the customer or client because they're getting the discount, but it's a lose for the person who's delivering because, like you said, it's double the work, two puppies rather than one. So that's what I call a win-lose, right? A win-win would be, okay, great, you've got two puppies. Because you've got two puppies, here's what I'm going to throw in. I'm going to throw in this as an addition to however you'd say it in the dog business. I'm going to throw in this extra to accommodate, to give you more value, etc., etc. And here's the fee. Now, the irony is people have no problem buying whatever it is at whatever fee. What people have a problem with is buying something at a fee that they don't believe is worth it. So if we go back to that Primark Prada example, here's a classic example. if the Primark bag is £20 and the Prada bag is £1,000, and we've accepted that the two brands are completely different, that also means if we walked into Primark and saw a bag in Primark for £1,000, we wouldn't touch it, because in our mind we'd say, I don't have a problem with spending £1,000. I have a problem with that Primark bag being £1,000. I don't believe it's worth it. Equally, if you went to Prada, or you were walking along a market one day and you saw a Prada bag for £20, your first thought wouldn't be, oh, this is a bargain, it's discounted. You'd probably make the assumption that it's fake or something's wrong with it. So isn't that interesting? So the point that I'm making is, it's never usually about the price, it's about how someone's perceiving it. Do I believe this is worth it? Do I believe this is valuable? And if the answers are yes, then it's like, great, here's the money, no problem. So it's all the mindset hack, if you like, is you got to think to yourself, how do I make this a no-brainer? How do I add value to make it worth it, so that someone isn't bartering on the price? They're like, oh yeah, yes, it's going to cost me, or the fee's going to be, I don't know, an extra £50, £100, £1,000, but because I'm getting this, and this, it is worth it. Thank you very much. That's the mindset I have. And that's it.
Yeah. And I think we forget that actually the potential customer is in choice. They don't have to buy
Absolutely.
from you.
Yeah. And they've gone
Sure.
along to the breeder and they've spent, I mean, would the breeder discount like the second puppy? Of course they wouldn't. Like, they're going to get, the same amount of money for each, aren't they? So they've just done that, and they've just bought that puppy, like 2 of those puppies. And then, why should we be expected to discount it?
Yeah, it's almost like we feel as the dog professional that, oh, well, we really want to help, and if we don't help you, then you might go to somebody else who we feel is a little bit more unethical. Is that a word?
Unethical.
Unethical. There we go.
I knew what you meant.
Joe's got this habit recently. Well, I think you've always done it, but it's come to light. She makes words up. Like,
Love
she
it.
adds bits onto the end of it. And unethical is not a word, but
I'm going to take it. Yeah, but you're worried that you're going to send them somewhere that doesn't align with what you think. So then it's almost that desperation bit kicks in, and we're like, oh, but this is where I need to discount, or this is where I need to make sure that my fees remain low. And then all of this other money mindset stuff comes in, where we're like, oh, but cost of living, and then this, and then people can't afford it. And then these dogs are going to get relinquished to shelters and rescue centers, and oh, I need to help. And I think it's really hard then for people like us to all come in and go, well, yeah, let's just put a really nice product or service in that helps, that offers the solution.
Yeah.
Is at a fee that works for you and works for the client, but the client is still in choice. They can still say no.
That's it.
Even
Absolutely.
if you discount it to 10 quid, they can still say no.
They can still say no, exactly. And I think what you've just said is probably the most important part. And this is where many business owners, service providers trip up, is they forget that the customer is in choice. The irony is, right, and I give this example all the time. It's going to sound really strange, but stay with me. Imagine going to Burger King and trying to order a McDonald's burger. It's super weird. If you wanted a McDonald's burger, leave Burger King and go to McDonald's. Now, the point is, well, what point am I making? Burger King will give you the options of all the burgers that you can choose. And if there's one for you, great, buy it. You can get different sizes, small, medium, large, so on and so forth. You're in choice. If what the customer wants is not what you offer in any way, shape, or form, like Burger King selling a McDonald's burger, then you've got to be okay with, hey, look, I think the shop down the road do that. You'd be better. Like, that's still serving. That's still being a great business owner, where you're not trying to missell or mislead. You're like, hey, look, this is what we do. Here's your options. Which one do you want? Which one do you like? Which one would suit you best? Da, da, da. If one of those work, great. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, that is okay. They're free to go and buy something else from somewhere else. Equally, though, going back to the options thing, this is why it's important to give people the power of choice, because then it feels like they're in control. But if you think about that example, Burger King set the menu in the first place, which means you can only choose what they put out, right? But we still feel like we're in control because we're choosing even with the limited choices that there are, okay? So what that means is, to combat that feeling of, well, what if they can't afford it, et cetera, is all you want to do is just have different packages. That's it. It's no different to, and I can give you multiple examples. Again, if you go to supermarkets, they will have their basic range, like just call it a pack of noodles. They'll have a basic range, they'll have their normal range, and then they'll have their like taste the difference. It's the same pack of noodles, but priced accordingly so that the customer can choose which one they want. Simple as that. If you go to a car dealership, it's the same thing. We call it specification. You can get the base model, the mid-tier model, or the high spec. You're still in choice. That's the key. The key is don't panic and worry about affordability and things. Just create choices, and therefore the customer chooses what they want. If you go to a restaurant and you see champagne, cava, and prosecco, ultimately they are all sparkling wine. But one customer might choose to cash out and spend £100 on a champagne bottle. Another customer might choose to spend £20 on a prosecco bottle. It doesn't matter. Let them choose, and you can never lose. Oh, I like that. Let them choose and you can never lose. Just made that up.
Write it down, write it down. So with that, because I wholeheartedly agree. And then I think that I feel like it's contradictory advice, but it's not. And I know it's not, but I can see how it could come across as contradictory. That when you are, maybe you're a relatively small business, so maybe you're not even hitting that 50K mark yet.
Sure.
Which I'm generalizing that the majority of dog professionals are around about that 18 to 50K mark. You're going to get some that are smashing it more, but the fair majority. Of course. And what we see is that there's almost too much choice.
Oh yeah, for sure. In the beginning, too much. Yeah.
So we're going like, oh, you can come and do a puppy class, an adult class, an aggressive dog class, walking, sitting, training one-to-one. But you could do training one-to-one for puppy, training one-to-one for adult, and it gets segmented into all of these different things. So I can see how somebody listening could potentially go, oh, well, that's why we have all of this stuff then, so that the customer's in choice.
Yeah,
but for the stage of business you're at, it's, well, actually a bit less is a bit better.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm glad you've made that point so we can make the distinction. It depends on the business level, and I'll give an example. In the early stages, or like you said, like sub 50K, less is best or less is more, right? As the business is growing, expanding, you're getting a bigger audience, that's a great time to offer multiple products or services, but not in the beginning. So case in point, when Coca-Cola, the biggest beverage company in the world, started, they had one drink and one flavor. That was it, the original glass bottle, done. Eventually, it then became the Diet Cokes, the Coke Zero, Vanilla Coke, Cherry Coke, Lemon Coke, so on and so forth. That happened later as they were expanding, but in the beginning, one drink, one product. So for the listeners to save the confusion, if you're in the early stages, it's better to narrow down your options. 1 to 2 is more than enough. As you're growing, the demand is increasing, people are requesting things that you're not yet offering, but you could offer. That's the point to expand. So in that Coca-Cola example, it's the reason why they own the brands Fanta and Sprite. Why? Because there might be people who, like myself, funny enough, who don't mind the fizzy drink, but don't like the taste of Coca-Cola. So what does that mean? I'm in the market for a fizzy drink, but I'm not in the market for that taste. Oh, let's create Sprite, which is effectively lemonade. Oh, let's create Fanta, which is, they've got all sorts of flavors. So that's the appropriate time to expand when the demand is there, when the audience is bigger. In the beginning, keep it simple, 1 to 2 products or services at the most. It's easy for you to understand, it's easy for them to buy. Then when you grow, you can expand and widen your niche, as we call it. So yeah.
But what about all the people I'm turning away, Rymel?
Oh, goodness.
Lose so many people by just having 1 or 2 products or services. You're going to ruin my business by giving me that advice.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. The irony is, and this is a hard pill to swallow, and if I can be vulnerable for a moment, it took me well over a year, possibly even 2 years in my business to fully understand that concept, because, like you said, it feels like if you're narrowing down, you're losing everyone else. The irony is this: when it comes to marketing, which is the, putting out what you offer, your clients or prospective clients want to know, see, feel, and believe that your product or service is right for them. That's the key part. They want to know it's right for them. Meaning, if you're too generic in the beginning, it sounds like it's for everyone, it's equivalent to it being it's equivalent to it being for no one, which is a disaster. So the irony is you want to be very focused in the beginning so that you become the go-to person, you're recognized, you're building credibility, it's very specific. And then as you grow, you become more generalized naturally to appeal to more people. Never do it the other way around. It never works. If you try to go too broad too quickly, you become a generalist. It's not really specific. People can get confused as to what is it that you're really offering. Not good. In the beginning, keep it narrowed. I promise you, it will do you massive favors. Just study the biggest companies. Like I said, Coca-Cola, one drink, one flavor. Dyson started off with just vacuum cleaners. Now they have multiple electrical products, from hair dryers to fans and hand dryers and all the rest of it. All you've got to do is just look at, well, what have other companies done? They kept it simple, started with one thing, now they've expanded. Facebook, many of us know and use it, one social media platform. Now they're under the organization Meta, which own WhatsApp and various, and they've got this thing called Quest as well, which is another little thing that they use, which is like all this VR stuff. The point that I'm making is many will start with just one, then they will expand. That's the key. So that's my thoughts for anyone who's worried about it. Don't worry about it. It will do you massive favors. It will be easy for you to market, easy for your audience to understand exactly what you're offering, then expand as you go along, and your business will grow that way rather than the other way. Promise.
The listeners, listen, please. Please listen.
Yeah,
it works.
But there's also that fear of being different from whatever, because everybody is offering pretty much the same. Like that plethora of services is so common. Like in some way, shape or form, pretty much dog trainer to dog trainer is offering a big selection of things. And when we talk to clients that we're coaching, it's very difficult, I think, to get out of that mindset of going, well, like, I can't do anything different from the next person, because, and I guess it comes back to that same thing we were just talking about of like, if I'm different, I'm going to turn all these different people away. But actually, you being different is going to
what makes you stand out.
Yeah, is what's going to get you the work, you know? So when you see these like local Facebook groups and everybody's just listing like, you know, I'm looking for a dog trainer, and 50 people comment, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And they're all the same. And like we were doing on our online course that we've got going at the moment, you'd done a screenshot of like Google, like the Google business listings. And you look at that sort of SEO data on the first couple of lines and everything is the same. I'm a professional dog trainer. I do this, I do that. And it's very much like and we're not looking at, and I want to talk to you actually about, because I always remember a session that you did about pain points, of customer pain points, and you dig it so deep, like you won't let it go, and you'll just be like, what else? So like, I think that is worth us looking into, because how many probably dog trainers are looking at the customer's pain points enough and the outcomes that they want to achieve, the solution that they're looking for. We feel the need to just say what we can do for them, but actually it's concentrating on that, isn't it? So if we can be different in actually addressing what that customer needs and wants, then you're going to stand yourself apart straight away.
Naturally, exactly. Yeah, couldn't agree more, for sure.
Yeah. So like, how would you advise anybody to start to look at that customer pain a little bit more? How do you start? Where do you start with that?
Yeah, great question. So if you're at the very, very beginning, so let's do this properly. If you're at the very beginning stages, as in super beginning, maybe you haven't even got any paid clients yet, but you've got maybe a little bit of a following or people around you are interested, the best thing you can do is market research or market testing, same thing, which simply means before you go ahead and create this wonderful program, course, mentorship, whatever it is, and you price it up and you get your logos and all that stuff, find out exactly what people are looking for. And like you rightly said, find out exactly what the pains are. I'm going to share something with your audience now. If you want to really stand out and make the business work, there's two levels of pain, if you like, that you want to understand. One's the problem, the other's the pain. Problem is usually the obvious, logical problem. Pain is the problem underneath the problem. So just to give everyone a quick example, let's imagine I have got a bad knee. Let's just say my knee's hurting. What's my problem? The knee's hurting. Obvious. The pain is what my knee is preventing me from doing. So let's say it was so bad that I now can't walk up the stairs, I can't drive, I can't get to work, I can't play with my children on the weekend. That is the pain that's being created by the problem. And now what happens is, which is what you alluded to earlier, the problem we realize is just surface level, the pain is way deeper. And when you can really get on that person's level, the prospective client, when you get on their level and understand the pain, that's where they say, wow, you get me, you understand me, I believe you can help me. Because ultimately, if someone's in pain, which is point A, they want to get to point B, which is being out of pain, pain-free, solution focused, etc. So that's why I'd really dig deep on it, because if you just stay as the obvious problem, as human beings, we ignore problems all the time. And ironically, the reason why I used my knee, because that was a real problem, I ignored my knee problem for ages because I was just like, I can deal with it, I can cope, I can manage it, until it got really bad. And I literally, there was times where I couldn't even drive the car because it was seizing up so badly. So the problem is I waited for that problem to get worse to then do something about it. And I went to see various professionals. And it was only until I found a chiropractor who really took the time to understand what caused it, what problems it caused it, and he really looked at it. I was like, wow, this is the first person who's taken the time to not just address the surface problem of you got a bit of knee pain. Because by the way, going a bit off topic here, when I went to the doctors about my knee pain, all they said to me was take painkillers. That's a surface level problem. The painkillers might solve the pain, but not the real problem underneath. That's what I'm getting at. So when I went to these various different professionals and eventually found the chiropractor who I have now, he dug deep in terms of my body alignment and my posture and all of these underlying things that was causing the knee problem in the first place, that when we got that solved, I'm now pain-free. I happily pay him, going back to the paying thing earlier. Why? Because he's solving a bigger problem. It's not just knee pain, it's what the knee pain was preventing me from doing. So going back to the dog businesses, you've got to understand that everyone's got a logical side and emotional side. The logical side might be, oh yeah, my dog doesn't seem very happy, or my dog doesn't seem very interactive, or my dog seems down. But what's the pain underneath that? It's breaking my heart. I feel like we're losing connection. I feel like they're very lonely and stuff, whatever it might be. When you get to that level is when someone says, wow, I feel like you get me, you understand me, and you can help me. And when you're at that stage, business will fly, for sure. But you got to take the time to get to know and care to go to that level, to show that you're not just like everyone else who's dealing with it at the surface level, you're dealing with it at the root level, and you'll do much better for it. And the customer will be happier for it as well, because they get their ultimate problem solved.
It's really similar to the way that we work with dogs anyway, because we are seeing a symptom of a problem. So like we'll go and work with somebody and they'll say, the dog's pulling on the lead and I want to stop that because, and I suppose, again, we could drill into those pain points a little bit more, why it's hurting, it's causing relationship issues because no one wants to walk the dog and it's your turn and all that sort of stuff. But also, like as the dog trainer's perspective, we are going to work through that problem, figure out why is the dog pulling on the lead. Like if we just start dealing with the dog pulling on the lead problem, fine. But if you don't address where does that come from? Where's the dog's motivation to actually want to pull? Is it trying to get to the park quicker? Is it actually trying to pull to get home because it's scared? Like what is the reason? So like I want everyone listening to look at customers' pain points almost in the same way that you would drill into a problem with a dog. You wouldn't just take that surface, I think most dog trainers wouldn't take that surface answer. They would literally be like, right, let's try and understand where that is coming from the dog so we can work on it from a different like level almost. What would you say then to people who are, because preventative puppy work is something that a lot of trainers get frustrated about, don't they? That people don't take it seriously enough and they're not spending money on something that's preventative because it isn't a problem yet. So when like in an ideal world, everyone gets a puppy, they sign up for some sort of help and support with their puppy, they don't have any problems, job done, like amazing world we'd live in. But obviously that doesn't happen, and the pain levels get higher and higher, and that's when people tend to, in adolescence, the puppy started testing them, it started getting stronger and bigger. So what would you say then to help that issue around getting that message out and hitting the pain that isn't there yet?
Oh, 100%. Look, and this is going to sound very tough, but it has to be on purpose. The only way to get around it is to share the truth from now. Because you got, like you said, otherwise, like I did, like most of us will do, we'll wait until it's a real problem to then deal with it, which is worse than dealing with it firsthand, like preventative, as you said, right? So the only way around it is to present the harsh reality. That is literally the harsh reality, the real truth as to what happens or what can happen if this is not solved or handled or looked at right now, and what should happen in that person's mind. This is why you can't just give the logical stuff, because logically we should all have life insurance. We should all have written a will because we don't know when we're going to go. I know that's very extreme, but it's the same kind of thing. If you wait until it's too late to write the will, it's too late. So the point is you need to do it beforehand because you're aware of the consequences prior if you don't get it in place. It's the same concept. So as harsh as it sounds, and I appreciate it's very harsh and very tough, and it might take some people to build up that confidence, granted, but you got to think about it another way. If you don't give someone the harsh reality now and they absolutely love their dog, puppy to bits, then they'd want to do the best for their dog, puppy from now. So present the reality of what can or does happen early for someone to be like, you know what, I never want to experience that in a few months or years' time. Let me sort it out now. And that's it. If you don't share the reality of what it will look like in the future, then people won't know. Or they'll just assume, oh, yeah, it'll never happen. It's not going to affect me until it does. And when it does, it's a bigger problem. It's more costly, et cetera, et cetera. So present the logical reasons why someone needs to be aware of it now and do something about it now, and present the emotional reasons why someone needs to be aware of it and do something now. And that's when you will get more people say, do you know what? I care about my dog. I believe in what you're saying. I'd never want that to happen. Let's get this sorted now. And that's it.
So you're basically saying then, rather than focusing on do you want a dog that walks well on a lead? Do you want a well-socialized dog? Do you want all this stuff, which is probably what most people are putting out with a puppy course of some kind? You flip that and say, like, do you want to avoid your arm being pulled out its socket? Do you want to avoid a dog that barks at every single dog they see?
100%. Yeah. And for the very fact, and again, this is just a harsh truth, for the very fact that human beings by nature will do more to move away from a pain than they would do to move towards a pleasure. So the reason why you want to flip it is because, of course, all the positive, rosy stuff sounds great, but as human beings, we do more to avoid a pain. So you want to address it from the pain point of view rather than just the light at the end of the tunnel point of view. So that's why.
To me, like all of that just comes back down to having that specialism, that niche bit, because all of your messaging. So if you imagine, like, again, your typical dog trainer, which Vicky once was, of going, all right, I've got my puppy classes, adult classes, one-to-one, reactivity, like all these different areas. And if you're trying to then drill in on that pain point, but look at it even from like a social media point of view, and then on day one, we're talking about puppies and you don't want to have all these problems. And then day two, we're talking about aggression and all of this. And then day three, we're talking about some walking stuff. I don't know. But without that specialism bit, we're not clear. And therefore the customer's not clear on what it is you're good at and what you do. So therefore they can't buy from you.
That's it. It's as simple as that. Couldn't agree more.
Isn't it? But it amazes me because even I struggled with it, but it amazes me how the human brain struggles with this because we all overcomplicate it so much, don't we?
100%. Yeah. Like, and again, it's funny because I call it your consumer hat versus your business hat. So like, for example, if you were to watch an advert on TV, as annoying as they are as a consumer, if you were to quickly flip and put your business hat on and analyze the advert from a business point of view, you'll learn a lot. So it's no different to, like, for example, if we're approaching autumn/winter, you will see adverts that will say things like, are you suffering from a runny nose? Have you got a chesty cough? They're going straight to the pain. Not, hey, do you want to be healthy and fit? Like, what? Do you see what I mean? They're addressing the runny nose, the chesty cough, the sore throat, and then they'll say, you know, buy this, buy that, go to your chemist, your local chemist, whatever. They're addressing the problems head on. Why? Because that's what people will most likely experience at that time. And because us as human beings want to move away from the sore throat, the runny nose, the chesty cough, we'll go out and buy the medicine. As opposed to just, do you want to feel happier? Do you want to do that's all well and good. But ultimately, I want to move from this pain so that I do feel happy. I'm focusing it from a pain point of view first and foremost, not just I want to be light, I want to be happy, I want to be free, etc., etc. Yeah.
I think it is an epiphany moment when you do realise that, because I didn't before. Like, unless somebody had put it like that to me, I was just like, oh yeah, we'll do all the nice things.
Oh, same, absolutely. Look, if we've got time, I'd like to share one of the biggest, because I think it's good from a context point of view, because as business owners, and I'm sure you share this with your audience, we all have our up and downs, our mistakes, our learnings, all of these things, as well as the wins, of course, but we make a lot of mistakes along the way. I will never, ever forget one of the biggest mistakes I made in my business, and it's related to this. And it was back in 2020 around the, you know what, pandemic. We'll leave it there, right? And what happened was, and I say this humbly, there's a point behind this. During the pandemic, we were very fortunate as a business that we were still growing. We moved into a new office, a bigger office. We were hiring new staff, so we were still growing despite all the uncertainty and the mass panic that was going on at the time, okay? And I'll never forget, I had friends, family, existing clients and prospective clients, or people who weren't currently clients, every day ask me, what is it that you're doing that's working? How are you staying financially stable? Da, da, da. It was, everything was just around the money stuff. How are you still able to grow when you're expanding during this time? So me with my positivity made the biggest mistake ever. I sat down with the team one day and I said, right, I'm getting these questions every single day. I should run a free training on everything we're doing right now that's allowing us to thrive financially, okay? To my surprise, this was a free training. It's important everyone catches it. So it wasn't even that they had to put money in. To my surprise, I advertised this free training, which was called How to Thrive Financially Right Now During the Pandemic, okay? No one signed up. And it threw me off. I was like, wait, what? And despite no one signing up to this free training, I was still getting these private messages every day. So I was like, no problem. Maybe it's just the way I'm advertising it. So I did the stories, the reels, the videos, the live videos, different posts, different quotes. I mixed it up on purpose. I did it for a whole week and no one signed up by the end of the week. And I was like, something is going very, very wrong. And I couldn't understand it for the life of me. So one day, sat with the team. So this was Monday to Sunday, it didn't work. Next Monday, sat with the team. I said, right, something's not working. I know people want this thing, but no one's signing up to it, and it's free. My PA at the time, we kind of did a little brainstorming session and spoke about it. She said, right, I think I figured out what the problem is. I was like, go ahead, what is it? She said, I think it's the wording. Now, just for transparency for everyone listening, I wasn't convinced. In my head, I was like, who doesn't want to thrive financially right now with all this turmoil and everything else that was going on? She said, no, I think it's the wording. So I was like, okay, what word or what wording? She said, I think it's the word thrive. Now, again, with my positive hat on, I was in disbelief. I was like, there's no way that word is the problem. Until she said, I don't think anyone's thinking about thriving right now. What? I said, so what are they thinking? She said, surviving. So now I'm like, wait a minute. I still wasn't convinced, but I knew what we were doing wasn't working. So I said, interesting. Okay. I changed, listen carefully to everyone that's listening. I changed the title of the training, not the content, not the time it was running for, nothing of the sort, not the days, not the timing. I changed the title of that training to How to Survive Financially Right Now During the Pandemic. The day I put it out, the training was full. I couldn't believe it. It absolutely, even to this day, when I tell the story, this is 4 years on, it still blows my mind that one word threw everything off. And the reason for it is what we're talking about now. If we talk about in terms of like spectrums or a scale or even energy, I was in green energy. I was floating up here, respectfully. And everyone was in survival mode. Let's call that red energy. So what it literally meant was my content, my marketing was not on the same page. It was on two different frequencies. I'm talking about thriving. Everyone's talking about surviving. We're not on the same page in any way, shape, or form. Meaning, when I then went down to everyone's energy, which was survive at the time. And I posted that. Now it's connecting. Now it's resonating because that was the pain. The pain wasn't thriving. The pain was, how do I survive? It's a different thing, right? But the irony is, when I changed the title to the training, I ended up having to run it twice because the first one was full. The irony is, and this is important for everyone listening, I had to meet them at their level. It's not about hierarchy. It's not that at all. It's just I had to meet them at their level and through the training, bring them up to the Thrive mindset. That's all it was. I wasn't operating or communicating on the same frequency. I'm talking about Thrive. They're talking about Survive. We're not on the same page. Now I'm talking about Survive. They're connecting, they're getting it, they're resonating. And through the training, I was like, right, here's what I've been doing. And before they knew it, by the end of the training, I had them also on this Thrive frequency. But initially, I was missing them due to the wording because of the pain versus the pleasure. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made and one of the most powerful learnings to this day.
What an amazing story.
That is a great story, isn't it? And one that just shows how difficult it can be to get into that customer mindset.
100%. And that is it. You've got to get into their mind, so not your. I was in my own head. And what I didn't realize was the irony is it was my level of thinking that was allowing me to thrive, but I wasn't respecting where they were at and their mindset, which is why we were literally on two different pages, two different frequencies.
Yeah, it just goes to show the importance, doesn't it, of really understanding your customer. One thing that I feel quite passionate about it, I think you do as well at the moment, is the terminology is starting to change a little bit within industry because we're going more forward with thinking of not even thinking of dogs, but I suppose thinking of dogs is like we're thinking of them ethically and welfare and all of this. And now we're changing the terminology from dog owner to dog guardian or caregiver. I'm like, and it sounds beautiful and I understand it, but I've got this jarring thing against me going, if you can't even like say the phrase, like if you own a dog, you don't like, if you care for a dog, it's like, you don't, you own, like this is the world we live in at the moment. Like everybody respectfully will go, I own a dog. Rightly or wrongly, like if you look into, do you know what I mean?
The question isn't, do you care for a dog? No. Are you a guardian of a dog?
Yeah, it sounds a bit weird, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does sound weird. And I totally understand why these phrases are starting to come out because
it's more than that. It's more than you just own a
like
dog,
they're not
it's
like a bit of property. Like it's not a thing. It's like being a parent essentially. But the point being, the general public are not looking at it like that.
Exactly, and that's a problem if we're not addressing it properly, like you just said.
Yeah. So it's just for everybody listening again, like really think about like what words and phrases that we're using because we're consuming all of this knowledge internally and we understand it, but we're the professionals, we're the geeks that want to absorb all of that.
Of course, exactly.
Customers aren't.
Yeah, once they've caught up, great, use that terminology.
Absolutely, exactly. But if it's not already resonating now, then don't, because it just will literally go over people's head, just like my Thrive Survive thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I love that story. I'm never going to forget that. That's brilliant.
No, it is. It's a cool story. I feel like I could talk to you all day, Rymel.
Oh, thank you.
I miss you, Rymel.
Oh, thanks, guys.
All right. Well, we'll get him back in our world soon enough.
Yes.
I feel like we haven't even done any dancing on this show yet, Rymel.
No, we haven't.
No, I feel like we need a musical interlude.
I know, I feel like a little bit of a shoulder shimmy on Zoom. Wouldn't be very good for listening, but good to watch maybe.
I mean, you have to go and watch it on YouTube then.
Fabulous. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us. It has been an absolute honour. I'm very humbled to have you on board with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure on my end as well. So thank you both.
You're welcome. We have got a question that stumps some people. So
go ahead.
Okay. Last question then. Who do you know that could come onto our podcast and help us spread all of our messaging across like the world as much as possible? So who do you know that could help us elevate all of that? Great
question. Who do I know? From a guest point of view, I can think of a few people. First person that sprung to mind was Nick James. Have you already had Nick?
He's coming on in the new year.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's Lisa Johnson.
Oh, we did it.
You're thinking big, right? So Lisa Johnson. Okay, person that's come to my mind is a lady called Amber, Reason being is she has, from my opinion anyway, from my point of view, she has a beautiful soul and is very big on, like, she's all about animal welfare and spreading positivity. Like, if you used to even go to her Facebook, she shares a lot of positive things. She like donates to like hedgehog shelters and things. So she's just got a very good heart when it comes to spreading positivity, love, and well-being. So Amber comes to mind.
Amazing. Oh, well, thank you again ever so much. And if people want to find out more about you, where can they go and have a look?
Oh, absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram predominantly. I am on LinkedIn, but not as much as I should be. But either way, on all the platforms, it's just simply at Rymel Dmot, which is Rymel, and then literally the letters Dmot. So that's Rymel Dmot on all the platforms. And yeah, that's where we can connect, we can vibe, you can ask me questions and all that good stuff.
Awesome. We'll put it in the show notes.
Thanks again.
Thank you.